So I get a check in the mail for $2,500 from a guy who wants some white oak, and he's 200 miles away. That was one of my first experiences with selling lumber that comes off of the homestead. Today we're going to tell you how you can turn your trees into profit from your homestead sawmill. If you got a sawmill on your homestead, you got something that's more than just building for yourself. You're sitting on an opportunity that can turn timber into profit on your homestead, and you're going to need some money. I mean, you can't go without money. So one way to make that money is to turn some of your timber into profit. But first, let's talk about why sawmilling can be such a game changer. A sawmill is going to offer you incredible flexibility. So I mean, this is whether you're building chicken coops, your barns, or building whatever you're building for yourself, or you're cutting it for people locally. That opens up a whole new area in your homestead that you didn't have before. One thing about lumber, if you don't know it, it's always in demand. People always need lumber for something. That's especially true when somebody's looking for quality lumber that they can't get anywhere else. I mean, you can't get good quality lumber at Lowe's and Home Depot. Most of it's been picked through. The big, they just run it as fast as they can run it. But if you want quality lumber, the local guys are gonna have better quality lumber than any big box store ever thought about having. So if you have that sawmill and you're already working on the land, you've already got the trees, then you have an advantage, and you can convert your timber into income. I mean, you can literally take fallen trees and turn them into cash, and they would have rotted on the floor of the forest. I mean, you can really do that and make money off of them, a lot of money. But the first step you got to do when you're talking about making money on a sawmill is you have to understand your local market. I mean, you got to know what kind of lumber the people in your area need. Are they looking to build sheds? Are they looking to build chicken houses, or they want to build furniture with it? So you need to know the types of lumber they need. I mean, they may want beams, they may want live edge. You'll be able to do that, but you just need to know what the market is. I know a lot of places live edge is a very popular thing, but I'm not sure where I live if it's that popular. I've never sold a lot of it. I did sell some cedar live edge, but not really many people want it. So in some areas, they can't get enough of it. The river tables, they want it everywhere. So I don't know if it's popular in all areas. So you just need to figure out what the people around you need. The do-it-yourselfers, they're gonna want some nice oak, and they're gonna want some walnut, they may want white oak, they may want cherry, things like that. And you may not have those trees on your place. If you got nothing but pine, then you're gonna be geared more towards the people that wanna build barns and things like that. So you just gotta figure out what your market is. So what timber are you gonna cut for profit? You know, not all wood is equal. And some of the wood is gonna be more valuable than other wood. And how you spend your time, do you wanna spend your time on the most valuable, or do you wanna spend your time cutting bad trees, getting rid of them, and you may not get as much money, but you're improving your place. So you need to figure out what you need on that, because some trees are just gonna give you a better return on your investment. Oak, walnut, cherry, cedar, you're gonna be able to sell that for a lot more because they're the most sought after wood, which makes the prices higher, especially for things like, you know, furniture or specialty projects. On the other hand, wood like pine or fir, they're not gonna bring as much money, but they're often in high demand. So people need that a lot because they're building things. So they need a lot more volume of that. So are you gonna be in the processing business, or are you gonna be in the custom, like wood type business? Or you can do both if you got both of the types of trees. But from what I found, you know, I like to harvest just the trees that fall. So I'll market that when it falls. So if I have a tree that's a white oak and it's falling down, then that's what I'm going to go. I'm going to put that white oak. When I see one falling, I'm going to put an ad out on Facebook Marketplace. And when they buy it, I'm going to take a half deposit, and then I'm going to go get the tree and cut it up. It'll just sit there if it's a fresh fallen tree. Now, when it starts getting 6 months old, I'll go ahead and get it up to the mill and try to get it off the ground. But if I see it's falling today and I see it's a pretty fresh fallen tree, I'll market it and try to sell it before I ever work on it. So the next thing you want to make sure is you set up efficiently. You know, people don't want to wait forever for things. Now, because I'm dealing with fresh cut lumber, they do have to wait a little bit. So it's not just, you can't just come get it tomorrow. And that's one of the downsides to cutting your own lumber is you can't, if it's a custom cut, you can't cut it and store it up because there's no way you can know what the customer's going to want. So, but you do want to make sure your process is set up efficiently so that you can get it out as quickly as possible. And one thing, you know, you want to make sure you have a good and reliable sawmill. I would try to figure out what you're going to cut, how much you're going to cut, figure out what sawmill you need, and then go one size up from that. That's what I would do. Say, I need this sawmill and then I'd get the one that's higher than that. Because you're always going to think, okay, I can do it with this. But when you get your sawmill, you're going to see that there's some inefficiencies that you didn't factor in. So figure out what you need and then maybe go a little higher on sawmill so that you'll make sure you really have what you need. But you want a good, reliable sawmill, because if you got somebody that's waiting on lumber and your sawmill breaks down and you can't get parts for, there was times in the last few years where you couldn't get parts for 6 months. Well, that's not good. And it shut people down. You're also going to need some good equipment to manage your lumber. You're going to have to move this stuff around, whether it's you either need a tractor or skid steer, so that you got good equipment to get it from one place to the next. You don't want to have to pick it up by hand when you're handling this stuff in different areas across your property. So make sure you got good equipment that you can handle the wood with. And a tractor with a grapple or a skid steer is pretty beneficial to have. And that's going to save you countless hours on moving things around. If you got to do it by hand, you're going to be wore out and you're not going to be near as efficient. And you also want to think about your milling setup. I mean, for mine, a lot of times I'll unload it onto a trailer if it's going somewhere else, but if it's not going somewhere else, I'll just put it on the tractor and take it where I need it to go, whether it be for stacking, for drying, or for whatever I'm building. Like if I'm building onto my barn, I don't store it. I just come put it up. So whatever you're doing with it's going to depend on how you set up that. But if I'm going to a customer, I will let it come off the sawmill and go onto the trailer. And you got to figure out how you're going to dry this stuff. If people are using it for barns, it's not that big a deal. But if they're going to be using it for furniture, you got to dry it. So if you're going to air dry it, people say it takes 1 year for every inch. So nobody's going to want to wait on that. So you got to have a good way to dry it. I built a solar kiln, and that's been a good way for me to dry it. Even that, you have to wait a little bit. So the way I see it is this: if you're going to sell for somebody who's building in volume and they're building a barn, they can put it up green. I think that's fine. The barn I built here, it was built with all green lumber, and I've had no problems. Now, people say you don't want to do that. There are some 2x8s that may have had some bow in them, but it's fine. It's for a barn. Now, if you're going to be using it inside, you got to figure out a way to dry them. So you can have an inventory on those types of wood and just say, look, when you buy white oak or when you buy walnut, this is the sizes I have. If you order pine, you can get it custom, but if you get walnut, because I got to dry it, it takes me 6 months to dry it. So you already have that built up in your inventory. But a lot of people say that air dried lumber is actually better. If you dry it air dried and then finish it with a kiln, it's better woodworking lumber than if you try to dry it straight with a kiln. I don't know from experience, but I have heard that from other people. The next step, which is step number 4, is you got to find your customers locally. I mean, you're not going to be shipping this stuff all over the country, so you're going to have your customers that are around you. And that's where the local connection really matters. I mean, you may want to advertise on Facebook, get your wife or yourself to put ads out on Facebook or share it with your friends if you want to do that. I personally didn't do that. I just put it on Facebook Marketplace. But if I did do that, it would be a lot more orders probably that I don't necessarily want at this time. But if I wanted to go just full-blown, full-time sawmill, then you could start advertising on Facebook with friends, family, and Marketplace, and you would probably have more customers than you want. Now, a small sawmill operation is going to be a lot more flexible and can do more custom work than you would say like at a Lowe's. You're not getting anything custom at Lowe's. So that's one of the advantages of getting it from a small guy. Word of mouth is powerful in small communities, so you want to make sure you do people right, because if you don't, nobody's coming back to you. So, I always tell people when they're cutting from me that I know what you ordered and I'm cutting for the project. So, if you ordered 1,000 board feet of white oak and you came up 100 board feet short, hey, just come back to me. I'll give you a few boards. It's no big deal. Or if you get home and this stuff, I tell them it's wood, so it cracks. You get home and you get ready to build this thing and your wood's cracked, let me know, I'll replace it. So you got to be, customer service is important when you're doing things locally. And it's important anyway, whether you're doing it locally or not, but it's especially important when you're doing things locally. It's kind of like going to the local co-op. I mean, you get to be the trusted source and people want to come to you and they want to use you. The next thing you want to think about is pricing your lumber. Now, for me, I don't really want to cut on my sawmill 24 hours a day. So I'm pricing kind of high for me. Now, I'm kind of measuring my inventory as well. Like my factor of only wanting to use trees that's fallen kind of limits me from the amount of trees that I have. So I have enough trees to keep me busy for the whole year. But if I wanted to go full blown and go out, then I wouldn't have enough. So I set my prices a little high, knowing that demand is going to be lower because my prices are high. So I'm going to get more per board foot, but I'm not going to sell as much lumber. And I don't want to sell as much lumber because I don't have time to cut that much lumber. So, because I do other things as well. So you want to set your prices based on your need. If you need to cut, then you need to be the best price. If you don't need to cut, then you don't necessarily need to be the best price. But if you got wood that nobody else has, then you can kind of set the price to a reasonable amount. Now, all lumber that we sell is sold by the board foot. And so you're going to price by the board foot. And there's many ways to look up how you can calculate a board foot online. We won't go into that discussion. Nobody wants to have a math class today, so we're not going to do that. But you can look it up how to calculate that. Another thing is, a recommendation I have is don't price based on what the market price is. I can go to Lowe's and I tell people this. I'm always honest with customers and I say, look, this is what I charge for pine. If you want a 2x8 by 12 feet long, the best thing for you to do is go to Lowe's and get your lumber from Lowe's, because that lumber is kiln dried. It's going to be straight. Well, I don't know if it's going to be straight, but it should be straight. It's been certified for building, and it's probably cheaper than what I can sell it for. I mean, just to be honest, I could sell it mine for cheaper, but I'm not going to spend all day cutting on my sawmill to make very little money when I could cut a white oak and make 5 times what I'm making on that pine. So it's a time versus what you want to sell it for. So when a customer comes to me and asks if I have pine, I say yes. And when they tell me what they want, if they want 1x12s, you can't get that at Lowe's. Not rough cut 1x12s. You can't get that. But if they want a dimensional lumber for structures, I tell them, look, this is what I sell it for. You can do better at Lowe's. So I'm honest with them in that sense, because I don't want them pricing me out, buying 1,000 board feet of lumber and then walking through Lowe's and saying, I could have got it cheaper here. That guy ripped me off. No, that's not what's happening. It's my time value versus my equipment. If I'm just dogging that equipment every day, just running it, I'm wearing out my equipment. Well, I don't want to wear my equipment out for 1/5 of the price of what I could sell my oak for, because I'm wearing my equipment out for nothing. So that's something you have to decide. Do you want to try to compete with Lowe's and Home Depot, or do you want to be the custom guy that says, hey, I can cut you some live edge walnut, I can cut you some pine siding that you can't get at Lowe's, things you can't buy at the store. And you want to diversify what you got to offer. Like I said, I can sell live edge stuff. I can sell cedar, I can sell oak, I can sell cherry, pine. So you want to be diversified to keep your mill going if you're going to use that as your primary source of income. If not, then I just want to keep my forest healthy. I'm worried more about the forest health than anything else. So, for instance, if I got a dead tree, I can get it out there and cut it up. That's a wasted tree that's gone. If I got a tree that's just got all kind of limbs all over it and it's just a bad tree, I could cut it down and it would improve my forest by allowing other trees to grow up. And I'm doing it with a small footprint that's not a timber company coming in and tearing everything up. It's just a small footprint of me going in and getting that log and coming out. And so that's things you can do with a sawmill where you can adjust your price and just based on your needs. But you want to be diversified if you're planning on using it as a primary source of income. Now, one thing you're going to know about a sawmill, and one thing you're going to figure out, once you get your word of mouth out, you're not going to have any problem. If you're an honest guy, you're not going to have any problem finding business. So step number 7 is to grow your business, but it's going to grow on its own as soon as people find out you have wood. Now, the main thing for me, and I guess it's just don't give your wood away. Set your price and stick with it. If you got people, this is not necessarily advice, it's just what I do. If you got people that are trying to bargain you down and get your wood for a very cheap price, to me, from my experience, and from me, that's going to be your biggest complainers. I would kind of steer clear of those people if I were you. I'd say, this is the price, this is what it is. The people that want to, bargain you down, a lot of times those are going to be the exact people that come back and say, well, I got a crack in this wood, can you replace this? Or I got a little chip on this wood, and it's not something that even would affect the wood. It is rough cut lumber. They're just wanting to make sure they get all out of you that they can. Those type of people, you get to where you can spot them just in their little marketplace text. They'll say, is that the best you can do? I'll respond and say yes, and I'm very nice to them. But you can tell the ones that are going to be complainers. You're providing a piece of wood for money. And so I want the people that are going to pay me the most for my piece of wood. But as you grow, you're going to want to think about, getting a bigger sawmill, things that handle the wood better, things like that make a big difference in your sawing and can increase your efficiency, especially if you're wanting to, just get after it. You can get a bigger sawmill, and that will help in increasing your efficiency. Now, another option with a sawmill, if you live on a small acreage, is to go cut other people's trees, and that's something you can do and make good money doing that. I know somebody that makes a living. That's all he's ever done is cut trees for people. And he goes and he sets up his sawmill and he cuts it for them and they pay him and he goes on his way. And he's made a living doing that. So you can make a living setting your sawmill up and cutting for other people. So these are just some tips that I have for sawmilling and having a sawmill business. I do have a sawmill business. I would not consider myself a sawmill business because I don't do a lot. But technically I do have a sawmill business, and I cut trees that are on my own property. And for the most part, I cut trees that have not been cut down by me but have been blown over. Now, if it's a pine, that's my one rule, is I'll cut a pine because I don't like them. They spread diseases a lot and they die a lot. So I will cut a pine, but I mainly use those for myself because I can't compete, like I said, with Lowe's and Home Depot. So I mainly use the pine for my own use to build things. Like this barn is, the structure of it is pine. The walls are poplar, but the structure's pine. If I was going to build anything, I'd build it out of pine. So, owning a sawmill, owning your homestead is not just about being self-sufficient. It's also about making an income. And a sawmill allows you to make an income to provide for your family. Now, it's not easy. It's going to take work. You got to have a good saw. You got to have a good tractor. And you got to have a good sawmill.